Luna's hands trembled as she stood in the marble foyer of the mansion she once called home, her reflection barely recognizable in the polished floor. The woman who had fled in tears and desperation was gone. In her place stood someone Tony would never expect, confident, successful, and completely transformed. The sound of his footsteps echoed from the grand staircase, each step bringing back memories of his cruel words, "You won't last a week without me." She had lasted much longer than a week. She had thrived. "Luna?" His voice carried a mixture of shock and disbelief as he appeared at the top of the stairs. The powerful Mafia Boss who controlled half of Los Angeles looked genuinely stunned for the first time in years. Gone was the broken woman he had dismissed. Before him stood a successful businesswoman in an elegant designer suit, her posture radiating the kind of confidence that only came from surviving the impossible. "Hello, Tony," she said, her voice steady and controlled. "We need to talk." "Welcome to Mafia and Romance. Tonight we have an incredible story of transformation and second chances. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support makes all the difference for us to keep bringing you these amazing stories." The memory of that terrible night still burned in Luna's mind as she looked around the mansion's living room. It had been in this very space where Tony had shattered her world with words sharper than any blade. "You're nothing without me," he had said, his dark eyes cold and calculating. "You think you can just walk away? You won't last a week without me, Luna. You'll come crawling back, begging for forgiveness." She had been 24 then, naive and completely dependent on the man she had married at 18. Tony Marcelli was the undisputed king of Los Angeles's underworld, a man whose word was law and whose protection came at the price of complete submission. For 6 years, Luna had lived in his shadow, beautiful and silent, the perfect mafia wife who asked no questions and made no demands. But that night, everything had changed. Luna had discovered the photographs hidden in Tony's office, images of him with other women, receipts from expensive gifts he had never given her, evidence of a double life that made a mockery of their marriage. When she confronted him, his response had been devastating. "Did you think you were special?" Tony had laughed, the sound echoing off the marble walls. "You're just another pretty face, Luna. Replaceable. Forgettable." The words had cut deeper than any physical blow. Luna had stood there, her heart breaking into 1,000 pieces, realizing that the man she had loved and trusted had never seen her as anything more than a beautiful accessory. "I want a divorce," she had whispered, her voice barely audible. Tony's expression had turned dangerous. "You want to leave? Fine. But remember this. You have nothing. No money, no skills, no family who will take you in. You're mine, Luna, and without me, you're nothing." That's when he had delivered the final blow. "You won't last a week without me." Luna had packed a single suitcase that night, taking only her clothes and the small amount of cash she had hidden away. She had no plan, no destination, just a desperate need to escape the golden cage that had become her prison. As she walked out of the mansion, Tony's voice had followed her. "When you come crawling back, don't expect me to take you back so easily." But Luna hadn't looked back. She had disappeared into the Los Angeles night, determined to prove him wrong. Now, standing in that same living room after more than a year, Luna felt the weight of her transformation. The scared girl who had fled was gone, replaced by a woman who had built her own empire from nothing. Tony descended the stairs slowly, his eyes never leaving her face. He was still devastatingly handsome, sharp features, perfectly tailored suit, the kind of presence that commanded respect and fear in equal measure. But Luna no longer felt intimidated by him. "You look," he began, then stopped, clearly struggling to find words. "Different?" Luna supplied, her voice calm. "I suppose I do." "Where have you been?" The question came out rougher than he intended, revealing a vulnerability he rarely showed. Luna smiled, but it wasn't the soft, submissive smile he remembered. This was the smile of a woman who had learned her own worth. "Building the life you said I could never have." Tony's jaw tightened as he studied the woman before him. Everything about Luna had changed, from her confident posture to the expensive cut of her clothing. Even her hair was different, styled in a sophisticated way that framed her face and made her green eyes seem brighter, more determined. You can't just disappear for over a year and then walk back in here like nothing happened, he said, his voice carrying the authority that had made grown men tremble. I'm not walking back into anything, Luna replied calmly. I'm here on business. The word hit Tony like a physical blow. Business? The woman who had once needed his permission to buy groceries was talking about business. What kind of business? He demanded, moving closer. The familiar scent of her perfume, something new and expensive, filled his senses, making him realize how much he had missed her presence. Luna reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a thick folder. I'm here to buy the Riverside property. Tony stared at her in shock. The Riverside property was a prime piece of real estate in downtown Los Angeles, worth millions. It was also one of his most prized possessions, a symbol of his power and influence. That property isn't for sale, he said, his voice dangerously low. Everything is for sale at the right price, Luna replied, echoing words he had once said to her. I'm prepared to offer you 20% above market value. 20% above. Tony's voice trailed off as the implications hit him. If Luna could afford to pay that much, she had somehow acquired serious wealth. How? For the first time since her arrival, Luna's composure cracked slightly. A flash of pain crossed her features before she regained control. Does it matter? I have the money, you have the property. It's a simple transaction. But nothing about this was simple. Tony's mind raced as he tried to process what he was seeing. The Luna he remembered had been completely dependent on him, unable to even balance a checkbook. Now she was standing in his living room, offering to buy one of his most valuable assets as if it were nothing more than a casual purchase. Sit down, he said, gesturing to the leather sofa where they had once spent quiet evenings together. We need to talk properly. Luna hesitated for a moment, then sat down but kept her distance. Tony noticed how she positioned herself, alert, ready to leave at any moment. The trust that had once existed between them was gone, replaced by wariness and walls he had built with his own cruelty. Tell me where you've been, he said, sitting across from her. Tell me how you went from having nothing to being able to afford multi-million-dollar real estate deals. Luna's laugh was bitter. You really want to know? Fine. I'll tell you exactly how your nothing wife survived without you. She leaned forward, her green eyes blazing with a fire he had never seen before. I spent the first month sleeping in my car, working 3 different jobs just to afford food. I cleaned offices at night, waited tables during the day, and did data entry in between. I lived on instant noodles and determination. Tony felt something twist in his chest, an emotion he couldn't quite name. The image of Luna, his Luna, sleeping in a car and scraping by on minimum wage jobs made him feel sick. But I didn't give up, she continued, her voice growing stronger. I remembered something my father taught me before he died, that intelligence and hard work can overcome any obstacle. So I saved every penny, enrolled in business classes, and started learning about investments. Investments? Tony couldn't hide his surprise. Cryptocurrency, stocks, real estate flipping. Turns out, all those years of listening to your business calls taught me more than you realized. I had a good ear for profitable ventures. Luna's smile was sharp. My first investment turned $1,000 into $50,000. My second turned $50,000 into $500,000. Tony stared at her, struggling to reconcile this confident businesswoman with the dependent wife he remembered. And then I started my own company, Luna Enterprises. We specialize in turning distressed properties into luxury developments. She paused, letting the irony sink in. I'm now worth more than most of your business associates, Tony. And I did it all without your name, your connections, or your money. The silence that followed was deafening. Tony felt as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet. Everything he thought he knew about Luna, about their relationship, about his own power, was crumbling. Why are you here? He asked finally, his voice quieter than before. Because the Riverside property is perfect for my next development, and because... Luna hesitated, then met his eyes directly. Because I wanted you to see what you threw away. The tension in the room was palpable as Tony processed Luna's words. He stood up abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked the city lights of Los Angeles. His empire stretched out before him, but for the first time in years, he felt uncertain about his place in it. "You wanted me to see what I threw away," he repeated, his back still turned to her. "And what exactly did I throw away, Luna?" "A partner," she said simply. "Someone who could have stood beside you instead of behind you." Tony turned around, his dark eyes searching her face. "You never showed any interest in the business. You never asked questions, never wanted to be involved." "Because you made it clear that my role was to be seen and not heard," Luna replied, standing up to face him. "Every time I tried to contribute, you dismissed me. Every time I had an idea, you told me to focus on woman things. You trained me to be silent, Tony." The accusation hit its mark. Tony remembered countless instances where he had brushed off her attempts to engage with his work, believing he was protecting her from the darker aspects of his world. "I was protecting you," he said, but the words sounded weak even to his own ears. "You were controlling me," Luna corrected. "There's a difference." They stood facing each other across the living room, the space between them filled with years of misunderstanding and hurt. Tony found himself really looking at Luna for the first time since she had arrived. The changes went deeper than her clothes and hair. There was a strength in her posture, a confidence in her gaze that spoke of battles fought and won. "The Luna I married wouldn't have survived what you've been through," he said quietly. "The Luna you married was never allowed to try," she replied. "You kept her in a cage so beautiful she didn't realize she had wings." Tony moved closer, drawn by an invisible force he couldn't resist. "And now you're flying." "Now I'm soaring," Luna confirmed, but she didn't step back as he approached. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "What do you want me to do about it?" Tony asked, stopping just a few feet away from her. This close, he could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes, could smell the subtle perfume that was uniquely hers. "I want you to sell me the property," Luna said, but her voice had softened slightly. "I want you to treat me like the successful businesswoman I've become, not the broken girl who left here." "And if I do? If I sell you the property, will you disappear again?" The question hung in the air between them. Luna studied his face, seeing something she hadn't expected: vulnerability. The powerful mafia boss who had once seemed invincible looked almost lost. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "I came here for business, but being in this room, seeing you again—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "I thought I was over you, Tony. I thought I had moved on completely. And now? Now I'm confused," Luna admitted. "The man I hated for over a year is looking at me like he's seeing me for the first time. The man who told me I was nothing is asking me not to leave again." Tony reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. When she didn't, he gently touched her face, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. "I was wrong, Luna, about everything." "Were you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Or are you just saying that because I'm not the helpless woman you remember?" "I'm saying it because losing you was the biggest mistake of my life," Tony replied, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm saying it because I spent every day of the past year regretting the words I said to you." Luna's breath caught. This wasn't the Tony she remembered. Cold, controlling, dismissive. This man seemed genuinely remorseful, genuinely vulnerable. "You hurt me," she said, tears threatening to spill over. "You made me believe I was worthless." "I know," Tony whispered, his forehead touching hers. "I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry, Luna." For a moment they stood frozen in time, the weight of their shared history pressing down on them. Then Luna pulled back, her business mask sliding back into place. "I should go," she said, moving toward her purse. "We can discuss the property deal through our lawyers." "Luna, wait," Tony called out, but she was already heading for the door. She paused at the threshold, looking back at him one last time. "You said I wouldn't last a week without you, Tony. But the truth is, you're the one who's been barely surviving." Tony stood alone in his living room long after Luna had left, her words echoing in his mind. She was right. He had been barely surviving. The past year had been a blur of business deals and empty victories, each success feeling hollow without someone to share it with. He had tried to replace her, of course. There had been other women, beautiful, sophisticated, eager to please. But none of them had Luna's intelligence, her quiet strength, or the way she used to look at him like he was her entire world. Now she looked at him like he was a stranger. Tony poured himself a glass of whiskey and walked to his office, the same room where Luna had discovered his betrayal. He sat behind his massive desk and opened his laptop, typing Luna Enterprises into the search engine. What he found made his blood run cold. Luna hadn't just survived, she had thrived beyond his wildest imagination. Her company was featured in Forbes, Business Weekly, and the Wall Street Journal. She was being hailed as one of the most innovative entrepreneurs in real estate development, with a net worth that rivaled his own. But it was the personal interview that made his hands shake as he read it. "What drives your success?" the interviewer had asked. "Proving wrong everyone who ever underestimated me," Luna had replied. "I was once told I was nothing without a man's protection. Now I protect myself, and I've built something that no one can take away from me. Any regrets about your past?" "Only that I wasted so many years believing I needed someone else to define my worth." Tony closed the laptop, feeling like he had been punched in the gut. Luna had not only moved on, she had transformed herself into everything he had never allowed her to be. His phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment his heart leaped, hoping it was from Luna. Instead, it was from his business partner, Vincent. "Heard Luna Marcelli is back in town. Thought you should know she's been asking around about the Riverside property. Word is she's got serious money behind her." Tony stared at the message, realizing that Luna's return had already become news in their circles. By tomorrow, everyone would know that his ex-wife had come back as a successful businesswoman, offering to buy his property. Another text came through, this one from his lawyer. "Luna Enterprises has submitted a formal offer for Riverside, 20% above market value, all cash, no contingencies. This is a serious offer, Tony. We should discuss." Tony set his phone down and walked to the window. The city sprawled out before him, a kingdom he had built through ruthlessness and determination. But what good was a kingdom if you had no one to share it with? He thought about Luna's transformation, about the strength and confidence she had developed in his absence. The woman who had walked into his house today was magnificent, powerful, successful, independent. She was everything he had never allowed her to be when they were married. And he wanted her back more than he had ever wanted anything in his life. But wanting her and deserving her were two very different things. Tony made a decision. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in months. "Vincent, it's me. I need you to arrange a meeting. Tonight." "With who?" "Luna Enterprises. Tell them I want to discuss the Riverside deal in person." "Tony, are you sure that's wise? Getting involved with your ex-wife again?" "Just set up the meeting," Tony interrupted. "And Vincent, make sure it's somewhere public. I want her to feel safe." After hanging up, Tony looked at himself in the mirror. The man staring back at him was powerful, wealthy, feared by his enemies and respected by his allies. But he was also alone, and for the first time in his life, that loneliness felt unbearable. If he was going to win Luna back, he would have to do something he had never done before. Admit that he had been completely wrong, and prove that he could change. 2 hours later, Tony sat in the private dining room of the city's most exclusive restaurant, waiting for Luna to arrive. He had chosen this place carefully, public enough for her to feel safe, private enough for them to speak openly. When Luna walked in, Tony's breath caught. She had changed into a different outfit, a sleek black dress that spoke of power and sophistication. Her hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon, and she carried herself with the confidence of a woman who owned the world. "You wanted to discuss business," she said, taking the seat across from him. "Let's discuss business." "The property is yours," Tony said without preamble. Luna blinked, clearly not expecting such a direct response. "Just like that." "Just like that. At your offered price with whatever terms you want." "Why?" Luna asked suspiciously. "What's the catch?" Tony leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. "No catch. Consider it an apology." "A $20 million apology?" Luna's voice was skeptical. "It's not nearly enough," Tony replied, "but it's a start." Luna studied his face, searching for deception. "What do you really want, Tony?" "I want a chance to prove that I've changed. I want the opportunity to show you that the man who let you walk away was a fool, and that the man sitting across from you now knows exactly what he lost. And if I'm not interested in giving you that chance." Tony's smile was sad, but genuine. "Then you get a prime piece of real estate at an excellent price, and I get the satisfaction of knowing I finally did right by you." Luna was quiet for a long moment, her green eyes searching his face. "You really mean it, don't you? You're willing to give up one of your most valuable properties just for a chance to talk to me?" "Luna," Tony said quietly, "I'd give up everything I own for a chance to earn your forgiveness." Luna stared at Tony across the table, her mind racing. The man who had once told her she was nothing was now offering her everything, asking for nothing in return except a chance to prove himself. It was the last thing she had expected. "You can't just buy forgiveness, Tony," she said finally. "It doesn't work that way." "I know," he replied, "but I can show you that I understand what I did wrong. I can prove that I've learned from my mistakes." "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" Tony reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick folder, placing it on the table between them. "By showing you this." Luna opened the folder cautiously. Inside were documents, photographs, and what appeared to be financial records. As she flipped through the pages, her eyes widened in shock. "What is this?" she whispered. "It's everything I should have shared with you when we were married," Tony said. "Business plans, investment strategies, partnership agreements. It's the information you would have needed to be my equal partner, instead of just my wife." Luna continued reading, her business mind immediately grasping the implications of what she was seeing. These weren't just random documents. They were detailed plans for expansion, diversification, legitimate business ventures that could transform Tony's empire. "You're going legitimate," she said, looking up at him in surprise. "I'm trying to," Tony confirmed. "It's what you always wanted, isn't it? For me to find a way out of the darker aspects of the business." Luna remembered the conversations they used to have late at night, when she would quietly suggest that there had to be another way, a cleaner path to success. Tony had always dismissed her concerns, telling her she didn't understand the realities of his world. "Why now?" she asked. "Because losing you made me realize that all the power in the world means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. Because I finally understand that the woman I married was never weak. She was just never given the chance to be strong." Tony leaned forward, his voice intense with emotion. "I've spent the past year trying to build the kind of empire you could be proud of, the kind of business where your intelligence and insights would be valued, not dismissed." Luna felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. This wasn't the Tony she remembered, the man who had controlled every aspect of her life and dismissed her dreams. This was someone who seemed to genuinely understand what he had lost. "It's too late," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Tony asked. "Because when I look at you, I see the woman I fell in love with, only stronger, more confident, more beautiful than ever. And when you look at me, I see something in your eyes that tells me you still feel something too." Luna's breath caught. He was right. Despite everything, despite the hurt and anger and year of separation, there was still something there, a connection that had never been completely severed. "You broke my heart," she whispered. "I know," Tony replied, his voice rough with emotion. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it if you'll let me. How do I know you won't just revert to the old Tony once you have me back? How do I know this isn't just because you can't stand losing?" Tony stood up and walked around the table, kneeling beside her chair. The powerful Mafia Boss, who commanded fear and respect throughout Los Angeles, was on his knees before her, vulnerable and open in a way she had never seen. "Because I've learned that loving you means setting you free to be everything you're capable of being," he said. "I don't want to own you, Luna. I want to stand beside you as an equal partner." Luna looked down at him, seeing the sincerity in his dark eyes. "And if I say no, if I take your property deal and walk away forever?" "Then I'll let you go," Tony said simply. "Because that's what love really means, wanting someone's happiness even if it's not with you." The words hung in the air between them. Luna felt tears threatening to spill over as she realized that this was what she had always wanted from him: respect, equality, the freedom to be herself. "I'm not the same woman who left here," she said quietly. I know, Tony replied. You're better. You're everything I was too blind to see before. Luna reached out and touched his face, feeling the familiar roughness of his jaw beneath her fingertips. If we do this, if we try again, it has to be different. I won't go back to being your silent, obedient wife. I don't want you to, Tony said, leaning into her touch. I want you to be my partner in everything. Business, life, all of it. Equal partners? Luna asked. Equal partners, Tony confirmed. Luna was quiet for a long moment, weighing her options. She could take his property deal and walk away, secure in her independence and success. Or she could take the biggest risk of her life and trust that the man kneeling before her had truly changed. One condition, she said finally, anything. We start over, not as Tony and Luna Marcelli, the Mafia Boss and his wife, as Tony and Luna, two people building something new together. Tony's smile was brighter than the Los Angeles sun. I can live with that. Luna smiled back, feeling her heart begin to heal for the first time in over a year. Then let's build an empire together. Sometime later, Luna stood on the balcony of their new penthouse office, looking out over the Los Angeles skyline. The building below bore the name Marcelli and Associates, a legitimate business empire built on the foundation of mutual respect and shared dreams. Tony appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. Any regrets? He asked, his voice warm against her ear. Luna leaned into him, feeling the solid strength of the man who had learned to love her properly. Only that it took us so long to get here. We got here eventually, Tony said, pressing a kiss to her temple. That's what matters. Luna turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had once told her she was nothing without him. Now he looked at her like she was everything, his partner, his equal, his greatest treasure. You know what the best part is? She said, smiling up at him. What's that? You were wrong about me not lasting a week without you, Luna said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. But you were right about one thing. What's that? I did come back, she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. I just came back stronger. Tony laughed, the sound rich and full of joy. Remind me never to underestimate you again. Oh, I will, Luna promised, her smile radiant. Every single day for the rest of our lives. As the sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Tony and Luna stood together on their balcony, two equals who had found their way back to each other, ready to build a future that belonged to both of them. Another incredible story comes to an end here at Mafia and Romance. If this tale of transformation and second chances touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support means everything to us as we continue bringing you these emotional journeys. See you in the next story.